Now, as discussed and as I informed in the previous class, that we have to start with what we call as duality in linear programming problems. Okay. Now I need one answer from you all. I mean, anybody who can answer. My question is, what do you understand by the term dual?
Two or by.
To or by or anything else?
Alternatives.
When we say alternatives, anything else? Hmm?
Two different natures or characteristics.
Two different natures of?
Or characteristics.
Arunima, can you repeat?
Two different natures or characteristics, like the duality of light or something. Dual nature of light.
Okay. What else? Anything else? I mean, apart from all this that has been conveyed to us. I mean, you're all right in your own ways. I'm not saying that any of the terms spoken is wrong or something. Dual, as many of you said, means two, or we can say double, right? Not exactly twin, but yes, the double of it. Okay? When we are looking at two things, right? Now, when we talk of duality in linear programming problem, it's like we have one problem with us that has been, put forward by the decision maker for us to solve, and one problem, the same problem, I'm not saying the one problem, the same problem, if I can look at it from two different perspectives, okay? So that means the same problem I look at with some angle, and the same problem I look at with some different angle to it. But in this process of looking at the same problem with two different perspectives, we are not changing the data involved. Nowhere are we changing the terms or the figures involved in the problem. Okay, then that is called as duality in linear programming problems. Okay, to begin with, I mean, to understand this concept, let's look at one situation where, say, supposing there is a carpenter. A carpenter makes three things. Say, let's say he's making chairs, he's making tables, and he's making bookshelves. Okay. These are the three things he's making. Now he surveys the market and he gets to know that one chair, if he makes and sells in the market, is going to give him, I'm writing revenue here, call it profit, anything. One chair is going to give him a profit of 3 rupees. One table, units, whatever you want to call it. One table is going to earn him a profit of 4, and one bookshelf is going to earn him a profit of 1. Okay. So these are his revenues that he is going to earn after he has surveyed the market, right? Now he observes that to make these three things, he needs a special type of wood. He has his own assembly unit or production unit. So the limitation is that he has machine time which is available only for a limited amount of time. I mean, he cannot be running the machines 24 hours a day or whenever he feels like running them. Okay. And secondly, he's using a special kind of a polish for these three things. Okay. Now, of course, he has done his research and he knows that one chair is going to use 1 unit of wood, okay, 2 hours of machine time, and say 3 units of polish, which is the raw material he's using, right? Similarly, one table is going to use 2 units of wood, 1 unit of machine time, and 1 unit of polish. And one bookshelf is going to use 3 units of wood, 1 unit of machine time, and 2 units of polish. This information he has gathered from his own research and he has conveyed it to me, right? To you, rather. Okay. Then he also tells you that the inventory that he has with him, or you can say the availability of these resources that he has with him is the fact that he has 90 units of wood. Okay. He can only use 60 hours of machine time, could be a week or could be anything, and he has 80 units of polish available to him. Okay. Now he comes up to you and he says, how many units of chairs, tables, and bookshelves each should he produce or should he manufacture so that he earns the maximum profit, keeping in mind, subject to the constraints of the availability of the resources that he has. I mean, we have constructed these kind of problems and we have discussed these kinds of problems, right? So if I convert this into my linear programming problem, then my problem is going to be, I'll say, okay, if it comes to, he's come to me for a solution, so I'll say, okay, let x1 units of chairs, x2 units of tables, and x3 units of bookshelves be produced, be manufactured. Okay, let us manufacture these many units. Okay. So as mentioned in the problem formulation, what do? We look at what do we want to do. We first of all look at the objective. And what is his objective right now? To maximize his profit. Okay. So we observe that one chair is giving him 3 units of profit. So x1 chairs will give him 3x1 profit. Similarly, x2 tables would give him 4x2 profit, and x3 bookshelves will give him x3 rupees of profit. So his objective, or the we can say the profit function that we can write is my z, which will be the profit function, which will be nothing but 3x1 plus 4x2 plus how much was the profit? x3. Okay. This becomes the profit function, and his objective is to maximize this. Is that okay? Now, let's see the constraints or the restrictions under which he's working, right? Now, the first restriction is on the availability of woods. Okay, so, and we know that in a linear programming problem, each constraint represents each limitations on the resources available to us. Okay, so that means since I have 3 resources for which limitations have been defined to me, so I have 3 constraints in this problem, right? The first constraint would correspond to wood, the second would correspond to the machine time, and the third would correspond to the polish. Okay. Now, one chair needs 1 unit of wood. And how many chairs are we producing? X1. So how many units of wood would be required by the chairs? X1. Similarly, how many units of wood would be required by the tables? 2x2. And by the bookshelves? 3x3. Right? So that means the total utilization of my first resource, which is nothing but the wood, is going to be, so I'm writing here subject to, this is going to be x1 plus 2x2 plus 3x3, right? This is going to be the utilization of wood, right? So I'm writing it as W. So this is my first constraint, which is corresponding to the first resource. But then the problem is that this resource is limited. Availability of this resource is limited. So obviously I cannot be consuming more than 90 units, whichever is available. Okay. So this has to be less than or equal to 90. Similarly, my second resource, which corresponded to the machine time, can now be written as 2x1 plus x2 plus x3, which has to be less than or equal to 60. And the third was polish, which I'm writing as P. So it's going to be 3x1 plus x2 plus 2x3, and this has to be less than or equal to 80. Okay, and of course, because I am talking of productions here, so I cannot be talking of negative productions. So my x1, x2, and x3 have to be more than or equal to 0. Okay, so this is one problem that we have constructed, which is a linear programming problem, right? Now, if I just look at this problem, I observe that the objective here, if I look the perspective or the objective here, to earn maximum, because my objective was to maximize the revenue function, okay, to earn the maximum, but under the restrictions that we are optimally utilizing, we are earning maximum by, we can say, utilizing optimum. Okay, I'm not saying minimum, I'm saying optimum. So optimally utilizing the resources that are available to us. Okay. Now suddenly the decision maker says, oh, come on. I mean, this is one angle. I'm fine with it. You give me a solution and I'll get to know that how many chairs, how many tables, and how many bookshelves do I have to produce so that my revenue on this would be maximized, right? I mean, we know how to solve it also because we have learned the simplex algorithm. So what we can do is, looking at this problem, we'll introduce slack variables, we'll solve it, and we'll get a solution for x1, x2, and x3. And then we'll end up telling the decision maker that go ahead with producing these many chairs, these many tables, and these many bookshelves, depending upon what solution he takes. Now, once I go back to him and I tell him that this is the solution, he says, okay, fine, you have worked for me. Thank you so much. But now I also want to know, that how much, or you can say how much should I utilize my resources in a minimum manner so that I am able to get at least a fixed amount of profit on these three products. Okay, he has not changed any other information, he has not changed anything, but he wants to now know a different objective. Now his objective is how much, I'm writing for you, how much to utilize so that the cost is minimum. Okay, fine, cost is minimum, but at the same time, what he says is that he wants to, fixed, at least fixed revenue is earned. Are you understanding the problem? No data has been changed, nothing has been changed, but suddenly he has changed his objective, right? Earlier, he wanted to know how much to produce so that the revenue is maximum. Now he wants to know how much to utilize so that the cost is minimum, but at the same time, he wants to earn a fixed revenue. In the earlier case, he wanted to know how much to produce so that the revenue is maximum, but at the same time, at least a fixed amount of resources were being utilized, right? Now the objective has changed. Okay, now the objective has changed to the fact that he wants to know how much should he utilize so that the cost involved is minimized, but at the same time, a fixed revenue is earned to him. I mean, he's able to earn some basic fixed amount of revenue. Okay. Now, with this change in the objective, one option is that I reframe the problem. Okay, I again solve it and then give him the solution. But he's not paying me anything extra. Okay, he wants a solution for two problems by paying me for a single problem. Okay, so the operational researchers, the persons working in this field, they were smart enough. They said, okay, let us come up with another concept so that we'll be able to solve one problem. And if the decision maker wants, we'll be able to provide him the solution from that itself. Okay. So that is where the concept of duality came in. So it's like we are looking at the same problem, but with a different perspective. That is because the data has not changed. The numbers, the figures have not changed. He has not changed the units of available resources to me. He has not changed when he's talking of fixed revenue, that means the fixed revenue that minimum he wants to earn is still 3, 4, and 1, which was the earlier case, which is the case. I mean, if I look at my objective function here, it's still 3, 4, and 1. So he has not changed these numbers. He has not changed these numbers, but suddenly he has changed the objective. And mind you, he has not even changed these coefficients. Okay, that means he has not changed the actual utilization, but suddenly the problem has changed. Okay, now looking at the same data, let us frame the problem the way he wants us to frame, and then we'll see whether we can actually solve the solution or not. Okay, so like if we head of x1, x2, x3, now my variables will change. So just a minute, I think some technical problem. My sheet has suddenly vanished. Let's come back to this problem. Okay. Now, instead of x1, x2, x3, I will have to now redefine my variables, because x1, x2, x3, if I write x1, x2, x3, they were corresponding to the number of chairs, tables, and bookshelves, right? How much to produce. But now he wants he wants me to reframe the problem depending upon the resources that he has. Okay, so that means now my variables have to be defined for the wood, the machine time, and the polish available. So they cannot be x1, x2, x3 now. Okay, I say let y1 units of wood, y2 units of machine time, and y3 units of the polish be utilized. Okay, now the total availability for wood is 90, for machine time it's 60, and for polish it's 80. Okay, so basically I am going to, the cost involved is going to be, okay, let's read it this way. Okay, let y1 be the cost involved with 1 unit of wood, y2 be the cost involved with 1 unit of machine time that we are spending, and y3 be the cost involved with 1 unit of polish. Okay, now how much wood do we have? 90 units. So that means the total cost involved, if he is using wood completely, is 90 by 1. Similarly, machine time is going to be 60 by 2, and polish is going to be 80 by 3. Okay. Now, this is my new objective function. So I won't write it as small z, I write it as capital Z, right? So now this becomes the cost function now. In the earlier case, it was the profit function. Now this is the cost function. Now, what do we have to do with the cost function? Now we have to minimize. Is that okay? So that means in case my earlier objective was maximization, it has now become minimization, right? Now let's look at the constraints under which we are working. Now, if you just go back to the table that we had with us of the utilization part, it was, I think, yes, this was the problem that we had framed earlier, right? Now, if you just look at this, what has happened? That each of the constraint in the new defined problem has become a variable, okay? And each of the right-hand side of the constraints in this problem have become the coefficients in the objective function of the new problem. Number one, this is one observation that I make. Secondly, now, if you read this constraint row-wise, it corresponds to the resource. That means if I read the coefficients, see, this is actually a matrix, right? I can write this as 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, and 3, 1, 2, right? This is my matrix. Let me call it as A, the coefficient matrix, right? If I read this matrix row-wise, then this corresponds to the resources. But if I read the same matrix column-wise, do they not correspond to the products? Like, because the column-wise, each entry is a coefficient of what? X1. And what is X1? The number of chairs to be manufactured, right? So that means if I read this matrix column-wise, then this entry is going to correspond to chairs. Similarly, second entry is going to correspond to table, and the third column is going to correspond to the bookshelves, right? Now, the only constraint that the manufacturer in the second problem has posed in front of me is that he wants to earn a profit of at least 3 units on one chair, at least 4 units on one table, and at least 1 unit on one bookshelf. Okay, now he's saying at least. That means he's willing to go in for more than that also, but definitely not exceeding that. Okay, or we can say that I have to utilize the resources, or I have to minimize the cost of my resources subject to the constraints. Now the constraints would be imposed on chair, table, and bookshelf. Okay. Now we want the profit to be at least 3, profit to be at least 4, and profit to be at least 1. Okay. See, now what has happened? The variables x1, x2, x3, or the variables chair, tables, and bookshelves have now become resources. Okay. And the resources wood, machine time, and polish have now become my variables. Okay. That means now when I write the first constraint, it has to be corresponding to the chair. And corresponding to the chair, I have to read the column of that matrix. Okay. So, and now my variables are y1, y2, and y3. Okay. So that means the total utilization on chairs now is going to be y1 plus 2y2 plus 3y3. Okay. So this should now be more than or equal to 3. And you have, all of you have your matrix with you. So you can see that I'm just reading that matrix column wise now. Okay. Similarly, second is going to be 2y1 plus y2 plus y3 more than or equal to 4. And the third is going to be 3y1 plus y2 plus 2y3 more than or equal to 1. With the restrictions, of course, they have to be more than or equal to 0. Obviously, there are costs involved, right? So minimum cost is involved in it, right? So it's now a different problem, right? So that means I have the same situation with me, but I have written a different problem, right? So this, because the situation is same, I cannot say that the problem is actually different in different sense, because my real life problem is the same, but the same real life problem has been interpreted in 2 different manners. Okay, so that is why we call one problem as the original problem, and the second problem can be called as its dual, right? But original looks a very unprofessional kind of a term. So what we do is we call one problem as the primal problem, and we call the second problem as the dual problem. Okay, so that means the same problem can be seen, can be understood, can be written with a different perspective. Okay, so this is the basic concept behind duality. Why? I mean, the basic concept in the sense that this is the situation why duality was actually required. Okay. Now, once the need of the problem or need of the concept is clear to us, the second step would be the solution part. Okay. Now, as I said, the operation researchers were clever enough because we don't want to work hard, and work hard in the sense that, see, everything is involved with money around, right? So if I'm not being paid extra for something, why should I work extra for that thing, right? So the same logic we apply here. So, and we observe that, simplex algorithm that we have learned so far is so good that if I solve one problem, the optimal simplex table would give me the solution of its dual. So you don't have to solve 2 problems. Solving just one problem will serve you the purpose of solving the primal as well as the dual. So that's the beauty of simplex algorithm. And that's why I again insist that till date, it is the best. We have not been able to replace it by a better algorithm. We have been able to tweak it. We have been able to, solve, reduce any other kind of a problem into a linear programming problem, and then apply simplex method to solve. Okay, so that is the only thing we have been able to do. Okay, but the problem is that before we go into the solution part, we must know how to write the dual of a given problem. Okay, so I mean, this was a very simple problem, so I mean, I could write it simultaneously, but if you are given a problem, we have to follow certain set of rules and observe what we have to do. Now, the very first thing that we observe is that if my primal problem is maximization type, my dual problem is definitely the minimization type. Okay. Secondly, whatever were the variables in the problems, this is what we observed. My chair, tables, and bookshelf were the variables in the primal problem. So if I have j number of variables in my problem, then what happens to the dual? Each variable becomes a constraint, right? So if my primal problem has j number of variables, then my dual is definitely going to have j number of constraints in it. Okay, is this clear? I mean, are you girls understanding it, whatever I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. Similarly, in my primal, if I have, say, constraints that were I in number, okay, like in my primal problem, the constraints were wood, machine time, and polish. And in the dual, what happened? They become the variables, right? So in my dual, I'm going to have then I number of variables, right? So that means the variables in the primal become constraints in the dual, and constraints in the primal become variables in the dual. So that's a vice versa thing, right? This is the third thing that we observe. Secondly, what we observe is that all less than or equal to type constraints, they become more than or equal to type in the dual. Okay. Secondly, what we observe is that the right hand side, I mean, whatever, I mean, this I'm not writing because it goes as unsaid rule because it gets understood here, it gets hidden here, that whatever were the right hand side of the constraints in the primal, they become the coefficients of the objective function in the dual. Okay, so I mean, that is understood here, right? Secondly, I mean, this is as far as, I mean, no complicated problem is there with us. Okay, so one thing that we can, I mean, we can do simultaneously here is, but actually what we say here is that what if you have an equality type constraint here? They were all less than or equal to types, right? But if I have an equality type constraint, then the rule says that in its dual, see, every constraint is a variable in the dual, right? So if I have a constraint in the primal, it will have a corresponding variable in the dual, right? So whatever constraint is equality type, the corresponding variable, I'll say the corresponding variable in the dual is unrestricted in sign, okay? And vice versa also. That means if my variable is unrestricted in sign here in the primal, then if I have a variable in the primal, then in the dual it is becoming a constraint. Okay, so if a variable is unrestricted in sign in the primal, then the corresponding constraint in the dual is equality type. Okay, these are the basic 6 rules that we normally follow while writing dual from a given problem. Okay, but before we begin with, I mean, let's try out certain problems and how to write the dual first, and then we'll see how to solve it. Now, why I'm insisting on writing the dual first? Because it's important from examination point of view also, as you know, you'll have one problem where you'll be given a problem and you'll be asked to write its dual. Okay, so if I let's take some problem. Now, I mean, the best part, I mean, the easiest way to write the dual would be you pick up a problem. Okay, if it's maximization type, yeah.
Can we make any LPC problem? I mean, can we make dual of any LPC problem?
Can you please repeat it, Shrija?
Can we make dual of any LPP problem? I mean, we have a primal objective function and we can make dual of its.
Yes, a dual comes into picture whenever primal is there. So you are
Okay.
given a linear programming problem, you can write its dual, no problems.
Okay, ma'am. But the rules here, actually, the thing is, we cannot have exactly same number of. I mean, the constants can be more than the variables. I mean,
Yes,
we have
definitely.
seen.
Yeah, definitely. This was a typical case where we had 3 constraints and 3 variables. So even in the dual, there were 3 constraints and 3 variables. That's what I'm saying. The number of constraints in the primal become the number of variables in the dual. So if in the primal you have 10 constraints and say 20 variables, in the dual you will have 10 variables and 20 constraints.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, ma'am.
And in fact, you know, the advantage of duality, as I was insisting when we were solving system of linear equations also, I was insisting again and again that increasing the number of variables will not increase the number of iterations. So sometimes to solve a problem quickly, if initially in my primal problem, if in my original problem, I have more number of constraints, but less number of variables, I write its dual, solve the dual because it will have more number of variables, but less number of constraints. So it will take less time to solve. So I solve the dual and then read the solution of the primal. So it's up to the person who is handling the problem. Okay?
Okay.
Am I clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's move on then. As I was saying, let's first of all learn how to write the dual. Okay. Now, when you are writing that, because once you write the dual properly, then there is that means the solution will also be correct. Otherwise, then you can end up with the wrong solution as well. Okay. So while writing the problem, what I would suggest is, if you want to minimize your mistakes in writing the dual, so this is now from examination point of view. Okay. In case you're given a problem and you are asked to write its dual, fine. The first thing you observe is, what is the objective function nature? What is the nature of the objective function? If your objective function in the primal is maximization type, okay, fine, then just look at all the constraints, right? Now, what are the possibilities when you see the constraints? Number one, they can all be less than or equal to types, then there is no problem, right? They can be a few of them less than or equal to type, but a few of them more than or equal to type also. We can have mixed constraints, right? So if your problem is maximization type, then first of all, ensure that all the constraints, they are less than or equal to types. Is that okay? Now see, I am not solving the problem right now. Okay, so that means I don't want the problem in the standard form right now. I am just writing the dual. Now there is a difference. In the standard form, we say that all the right-hand sides should be positive, right? But that is standard form is required when we start the simplex algorithm. That is the first thing we do, right? Given an LPP, to solve it by using simplex method, what is the first step we say? We say the standard form of the given LPP is this, right? At present, I am not solving the problem. I'm just writing the dual, right? So I can do anything with it. So what I want is, I want all my constraints to be less than or equal to types. If I have a constraint that was actually more than or equal to type, to convert it to less than or equal to type, what are you going to do? Simply multiply that constraint by -1. Your sign of the inequality will get changed. Doesn't matter. Your right-hand side will become negative. Doesn't matter. Why? Because I'm not solving it right away, right? I'm trying to write the dual of it, right? So in case all, so now listen to me carefully, because this you have to follow stepwise. To kabhi galti nahi hoga. Otherwise you will end up committing silly mistakes. So it might take a minute or two longer, but it's better to answer it correctly than to answer it quickly but wrong. Okay, so take your time in writing the duals. There's no hurry, but write it properly. So one thing that I'm doing is, again I'm repeating, look at the nature of the objective function. If it's maximization type, ensure that all your constraints are less than or equal to type. How to ensure that? If you have a more than or equal to type constraint, simply multiply it by -1 and it will become less than or equal to type. Now, the obvious question should be, what if my constraint is equality type? हो सकता है ना, mixed constraints हैं, कुछ constraints less than or equal to भी हो सकते हैं, कुछ constraints more than or equal to भी हो सकते हैं, and कुछ constraints equal to भी हो सकते हैं, right? So, not a big deal. If I have, see, again, logic. Maths is nothing but logic, and OR is absolute logic. So, see, if I have this, if my constraint is equality type, that means I have a situation like this. This is my constraint, and this is my right-hand side, right? Now, mathematically, what does A equal to B implies? Any answers? Logically,
Ma'am, the value of A is B.
no, they are not values. They are not numbers. My left-hand side is a linear relationship between the variables, and my right-hand side is some constant. Logically, this means that A is less than or equal to B, and A is more than or equal to B. Am I right or not? What is the intersection of less than or equal to and more than or equal to?
Equal to.
Equal to, right? That's what I'm saying, and, right? So that means if I have an equality constraint, I can replace it with two constraints. One less than or equal to types, and another more than or equal to types. But if I have this constraint more than or equal to type, I can read it as -A less than or equal to -B. Am I right or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Is
Yes,
itna slow? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
कोई confusion तो नहीं है ना?
No.
Right. Now, again, I am saying we are not solving right now. We are just writing the dual. And as you follow this procedure, as you follow these steps, you will see for yourself that how an equality constraint has an unrestricted variable there. Okay? So just remember one thing, that if your problem is maximization type, first of all, ensure that all your constraints are less than or equal to types. Similarly, in case your problem is minimization type, okay, then ensure that all your constraints are more than or equal to types. Before writing the dual, we check for only these two things. If it's maximization, we make all the constraints less than or equal to type. And if it's minimization, we make all the constraints more than or equal to type by following the same procedure. You know, like here we are converting all more than into less than. Here we'll be converting all less than into more thans. And equalities can be handled exactly in a similar manner. Is this clear? Okay. Now, once you have seen this, then what you have to do is that each constraint now in your original primal problem would correspond to a variable. Okay. So depending upon, supposing I have m number of constraints, I will have m number of variables, yn. So if initially I had n number of variables, see in my problem, primal problem, I have n variables and m constraints. Okay. So that means my variables are xj's, right? And my m constraints means if my variables are xj, that means I'm assuming that my j varies from 1 to n, and my m constraints would mean I'll introduce another suffix I, which will vary from 1 to m, where I would correspond to the constraint and j would correspond to the variables. That means if I had m number of constraints, now my variables have become yi's, which were originally xj's. Am I right now? Okay, am I clear now? Similarly, whatever variables we had, now they will become my constraints, right? So now I will have n number of constraints in the dual, right? So the next thing that we are going to do is introduce our dual variables that we have done. Now frame the objective function of the dual. Okay. While framing the objective function of the dual, you have introduced the dual variables, but we need the coefficients of the dual variables, right? And where will the coefficients of the dual variables in the objective function come from? They will come from the right-hand sides of the constraints from the primal. Okay. Now you see why a negative value here will not create a problem for us, because now those negative values have actually gone into the objective function part. Okay. So even if some b, say supposing b3 turns out to be negative here, so that means my y3 in the objective function of the dual will have a negative coefficient. That does not make any problem to me, because that is a part of my objective function. Is that okay? So that means all the right-hand sides of your problem, primal problem, will go to your objective function, right? And then when you are writing the constraints for the dual, just read the columns of the primal constraints. Okay. And they will become the rows for dual constraints. Okay. And the coefficients in the objective function of the primal, they become the right-hand side of the dual in the constraints. Okay, so even if it was positive, negative, that depends upon what we have. And signs we have already seen that if I have a less than or equal to type constraint, it becomes more than or equal to, and if I have a more than or equal to type constraint in the primal, it becomes less than or equal to type constraint in the dual. I mean, is this clear? I mean, it will be more clear when I take up a problem, definitely. But is the procedure clear to you? Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Are all of you here or have just gone back to sleep?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thought you have all dozed off. Hmm? Okay, let's try this problem. And then now be ready with your paper and a pencil if you were not so far. Say, supposing I have this problem, maximize z equal to x1 minus x2 plus 3x3 subject to x1 plus x2 plus x3 less than or equal to 10. Again, it is by chance. I'm going to have three variables, three constraints, but it's okay. 2x1 minus, what I can say, plus 0x2 minus x3 less than or equal to 2, 2x1 minus 2x2 minus 3x3 less than or equal to 6, and of course x1, x2, x3 more than or equal to 0. Now the question is to write the dual of this. Okay. Now that means this is my primal problem, right? I'm writing it as P. I have to write its dual. Okay. Now I go back to my rules. So I look at my primal problem. It is maximization type, right? So my dual will definitely be minimization type. That was the first rule, right? Now, what is the next thing that I have to see? Because my primal was maximization type, I have to confirm that all my constraints are less than or equal to types. They already are, right? If I just look at all these three here, they already are. So I don't have to make any changes in the constraints of the primal so far, right? So that step is sort of, deleted from this problem. Now, what do I have to do? For each of the constraint in the primal, I have to associate a variable, right? So how many constraints do I have in the primal? 3, right? So that means my dual is going to be minimize, say capital Z now, equal to, I'm going to have 3 dual variables, right? So let me call them as y1, y2, y3. See, I'm not written anything else in between. Of course, now that I have to do. Now, what will happen? As I said, the right-hand side of the constraints in the primal, they become the coefficients of the objective in the dual. Is that right? So that means, because corresponding to the first constraint, I have the dual variable y1. Corresponding to the second constraint, I have the dual variable y2. And corresponding to the third constraint, I have the dual variable y3. Okay. So it will become 10y1 plus 2y2 plus 6y3. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now we have to write the constraints of the dual. Okay. Now to write the constraints of the dual, as I said just now, read the matrix column wise. Okay. Why? Because the first column, see what will happen in the dual? The variables of the primal will become the constraints in the dual, right? And how many columns in the primal matrix will you have? As many variables you have, because the first column corresponds to the variable x1, the second column corresponds to the variable x2. So if you have n number of variables here, you have n number of columns here, right? And each column corresponding to each of the variable. Now what will happen? Each column now will become a constraint. So that means each column will become a row, right? So basically what are you doing? You are actually writing the transpose of this matrix when you are writing the dual, okay? But now, because you are reading it column wise, so now each column will correspond to the dual variables here. So it will be y1, y2, y3. This is what I have. First constraint corresponds to y1, second constraint corresponds to y2, third constraint corresponds to y3. So it's going to be 1 into y1, 2 into y2, 2 into y3. Is this clear? So that means my first constraint corresponding to the first variable of the primal is going to be y1 plus 2y2 plus 2y3. Okay. Now, because my constraint here was less than or equal to type, so it will become more than or equal to type. But what will be the corresponding right-hand side here? Obviously, the coefficient of the first variable in my problem in the objective function. So what was that? 1. So it will be 1. Is this clear? Just remember that the coefficients of the objective of the primal will become the right-hand sides of the dual. Okay? And the right-hand sides of the primal will become the objective coefficients of the dual. Is that okay? Now come to the second constraint. So it's going to be y1 plus 0y2 minus 2y3 more than or equal to, now what was the coefficient there? Minus 1. So I'll have a minus 1 here. Okay. Similarly, the third constraint is going to be y1 minus y2 minus 3y3 more than or equal to, what was the constant there? 3. So I'll have 3 here. Okay. And obviously the non-negativity restrictions, because all my primal variables were more than or equal to 0. All my primal constraints were less than or equal to types. Therefore, my dual variables will be more than or non-negative in nature, more than or equal to 0. So this will become the dual of the given problem. Now, I've just written the dual, right? Obviously, it is not the standard form because I have a minus 1 here. So if now I am to solve the dual, I will have to first of all convert it into a standard form, then look whether artificial, slack, surplus variables need to be introduced or not, and then solve using the simplex method. Okay, I'm not talking of the solution procedure right now. I'm simply talking of writing the dual part today. Okay. Now, this was a simple problem, straightforward. I already had maximization and all the constraints were more than or equal to type. Supposing I have another problem, let's take another problem where I wanted to take up maximization but with mixed sort of constraints. Sure, we are not solving it, so I can always change it. Supposing my problem is to maximize z equal to x1 minus 3x2 minus 2x3 subject to 3x1 minus x2 plus 2x3 less than or equal to 7 and 2x1 minus 4x2 more than or equal to 12. Let's take an equality constraint also. Minus 4x1 plus 3x2 plus 8x3 equal to 10. Okay. Shall I take both together, unrestricted in sign and equality constraints together? Okay, then let's make it more complicated. Let me take it as minimization type, and also let us consider the case when x1, x2 is more than or equal to 0, but x3 is unrestricted in sign. Okay, now I've considered everything in one problem. Let's see how to write the dual of it. Have you noted down the problem?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's see. See now, deliberately what I have done, I have taken the minimization constraint, and one of the constraint also I have taken to be equality, and one of the variable of the primal also I have taken to be unrestricted in sign. Okay. Now, if you just go back to the rules that I wrote, I mentioned that if a variable, if a constraint in the problem is equality types, then the corresponding variable in the dual is unrestricted in sign. And if a variable in the primal is unrestricted in sign, then the corresponding constraint in the dual is equality types. Okay. Now, instead of writing it directly, you just follow these steps systematically, one after the other. You will automatically reach that stage. See how? First of all, let's see. These variables are already non-negative, but this variable is unrestricted in sign. So what I'll do is, I'll handle the unrestricted in sign variable the way we have been handling in simplex method. How do? We replace unrestricted variable as a difference of two non-negative variables. इसी तरह से करते हैं ना? Even by doing simplex method also. This is what we do. So that means one thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to replace x3 with x3 dash minus x3 double dash everywhere in my primal problem. One thing that I'm going to do. Secondly, because my problem is minimization type, primal problem is minimization type, second thing that I'm going to do is write all the constraints as more than or equal to types, because then only I'll be able to convert them into less than or equal to type in my dual. Is that okay? Now, just look at the constraints here. The first constraint itself is less than or equal to type. Okay. So what I can do is I can multiply this constraint by -1 throughout, and the sign of the inequality will get reversed. Fine. So that means my first constraint can be written as -3x1 plus x2 minus 2x3 more than or equal to -7. Am I right or not?
Yes.
Right. Now, come to the third constraint, which was equal to types. Okay. Now, I'm just, since I'm writing it, I'm writing this constraint this way. As I said, this equality can be written as minus 4x1 plus 3x2 plus 8x3 less than or equal to 10, or minus 4x1 plus 3x2 plus 8x3 more than or equal to 10, because I have an exact equality here. So I'll take simultaneously both the inequality signs and I will ultimately get the equality as the intersection. Okay. Now this part is already more than or equal to types, but this part is less than or equal to type, which can be handled the way we handle this. Okay. So in a way, all my constraints would get converted to more than or equal to types, right? So what I do is, before writing the dual, I rewrite the primal by making all these changes that I have done. Okay. So in a way, my primal now is to minimize z equal to, what was the objective function? x1 minus 3x2. Now it was minus 2x3, but x3 we have replaced. Okay, so it's going to be minus 2x3 dash plus 2x3 double dash. Is that right? I'm rewriting the primal, mind you, again and again. And everywhere I have to change x3 to x3 dash minus x3 double dash. Is this clear or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now let's write the constraint. Now the first constraint we have already multiplied by minus 1. So it becomes minus 3x1 minus x2. Now it has become minus 2x3, right? So it will be minus 2x3 dash plus 2x3 double dash, but more than or equal to minus 7 now. Is that right?
It is plus x2.
Ma'am, it's x2.
Plus x2.
Okay, yeah, it's plus x2. Right. Now what about the second constraint? It's already more than or equal to type, and there is no x3 in the second constraint. Am I right? So it remains the same, 2x1 minus 4x2 more than or equal to 12. Okay, now see, we have replaced the third constraint by two constraints. Fine. So I write that as the first one, kaun se wala le, less than wala, which has to be converted to more than or equal to types. So it will be 4x1 minus 3x2 minus 8x3 dash plus 8x3 double dash more than or equal to minus 10. And the second was already more than or equal to type. So it will be minus 4x1 plus 3x2 plus 8x3 dash minus 8x3 double dash more than or equal to 10. Am I right or not? Just check it out. Because, yeah, this was less than or equal to type, so it had to be converted to more than or equal to, so I've written it correctly. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? But
Yes,
now we are very sure that all my variables, x1, x2, x3 dash, x3 double dash, they are all non-negative, because we have replaced the unrestricted sign variable. Okay. Now my problem is minimization. All my constraints are more than or equal to type. I can write the dual directly. Okay. See, how many variables do I have? 1, x1, x2, x3 dash, x3 double dash. So in this problem, I have 4 variables. And how many constraints do I have? I have 4 constraints. Okay. So the dual is also going to have 4 variables and 4 constraints, right? Now see, I'm just doing this for your understandings. Okay. So corresponding to the first constraint, I'm going to have y1, y2, y3, and y4. Okay. And each of them here, 1, -3, -2, and 2 is going to constitute the right-hand side of my constraints in the dual. Is this clear? So when we write the dual, it's going to be number 1, because my primal was minimization, so my dual is going to be maximization. Maximize capital Z equal to, now see, my dual variables are y1, y2, y3, y4. And what are my right-hand sides right now? They are actually -7, y1, then plus 12, y2, -10, y3, plus 10, y4. These are the right-hand sides. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, write the constraints subject to. Now, can anybody read out the values column-wise? It's going to be, I think, 3y1 plus 2y2 minus, no, plus, is it going to be plus or minus? What did we write?
-3y1.
Let me see. Yeah, -3y1. Yeah, it's going to be -3y1 plus 2y2 plus 4y3 minus 4y4. That's right. Let me write it again. -3y1 plus 2y2 plus 4y3 minus 4y4, right? But then because the original constraint, primal constraint was more than or equal to type, so this will be less than or equal to type. And what will be the right-hand side here? 1.
1.
Okay. Now, what about the second constraint?
y1 minus 4y2 minus 3y3
y1 minus
4y2 minus
Huh?
3y3
Huh?
plus 3y4
Huh?
should be less than equals to -3.
-3. That's right. Now, what about the third constraint?
-2y1
-2y1
plus 0y2
huh?
-8y3
Huh?
plus 8y4
Huh? Less than or equal to
-2.
-2. And what will be the last one?
Plus 2y1
Plus 0y2
plus 8y.
8y3 minus 8y4 less than or equal to 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. But here my y1, y2, y3 and y4 are more than or equal to 0. Okay. Now we come back to the rule that we were to follow. In the sense, in my problem, my third constraint was equality. See, ideally, my problem had 3 variables and 3 constraints, right? So ideally my dual should also have 3 variables and 3 constraints. That means somehow here I have to club either my variables and my constraints, or the situation is such that 2 of the variables I'll be able to club together and 2 of the constraints I'll be able to club together, so that ultimately I'll get exactly 3 variables and 3 constraints in the dual also. Okay. Now, if you just look at your primal problem, the third constraint in the primal was equality type, right? So as per the rules, the third variable in the dual should be unrestricted in sign. And wo ho raha hai. See, just look at this. Just look at the way your Y3s and Y4s are behaving everywhere. Okay. I can introduce another variable as, let me call it as, क्या बोले उसको, Y5 बोल दें, Y3 yeah, I know. Let's call it as Y5 only. Otherwise, dashes will create confusion. Let Y5 be defined as Y3 minus Y4. Okay. Now see, Y3 and Y4 were non-negative in nature, right? I have not solved the problem. I don't know whether Y3 is 0 or Y4 is 0, right? If I solve the problem and I get that Y3 is non-basic, so that means Y3 is 0. So what is my Y5 equal to? Minus Y4. But what if Y4 is non-basic? In that case, Y4 will be 0 and Y5 will be equal to Y3. That means before I solve the problem and I don't know what is going to happen, I gather that my Y5 can be positive, my Y5 can be negative. So basically, the moment we write one variable as a difference of 2 non-negative variables, I am actually concluding that my Y5 is unrestricted in sign. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Similarly, look at the last 2 constraints. My variable x3 was unrestricted in sign, right? In the primal. Corresponding to x1 of primal, I have this constraint. Corresponding to x2 of my primal, I have the second constraint, right? If I look at the last 2 constraints, ideally I should have just one constraint here corresponding to x3, right? Now, x3 was unrestricted in sign in my primal. So that means in the dual, it should be an equality constraint. And that is possible. Why? Just look at the values here. The second constraint is nothing but the minus of the first constraint.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So that means I can multiply the first equation by -1. My sign will get reversed here. I can write it as 2y1 plus 0y2 plus 8y3 minus 8y4 more than or equal to 2. This constraint. When I multiply by -1, sorry, will give me this, right? Now, the left-hand side now is same as the left-hand side of the fourth constraint. But what do I have? More than or equal to sign here. And what do I have? Less than or equal to sign here. So that means more than or equal to and less than or equal to. So what they should imply? exact equal to. Okay, so that means the last two constraints can be clubbed together to get an equality constraint. And that should happen. Why? Because my x3 was unrestricted in sign. So definitely the corresponding constraint in the dual should be equality types. And that I have got. Okay. So if I now rewrite my dual in a way I want, it's going to be, now I can say that therefore the dual is going to be maximize capital Z equal to, now it's going to be minus 7y1 plus 12y2 plus 10. I'm writing y5, okay, just to avoid confusion, because otherwise, what will you write, right? Your variables are just 3 only, y1, y2, y5, okay? I hope there is no confusion with 5. Is that okay or not? Now, your constraints will become minus 3y1 plus 2y2. Now, everywhere you can combine y3 with y4, replace y3 minus y4. This is what we are doing. We are writing y3 minus y4 as... can you repeat it, please?
I mean, the objective function of dual, that should be minus 10 y5.
Minus 10 by 5.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute.
And we have taken y5 as y3 minus y4.
So you can do that, no problem. Let me cross check. Yeah. So accordingly, either be you'll have your different coefficients. It's okay, perfectly fine. Okay.
And then it should be minus 10 y5.
Yeah, it should be minus 10. Yes. I'm just coming to it. Yeah. It should be not plus 10, minus 10, right? Then the next will be minus 3y1 plus 2y2. I think now you will have minus 4. Kitna aega?
Plus 4.
4 y10, y5.
Yeah, plus 4 y5, and this will be less than or equal to 1,
1.
right? What about the next one? y1 minus 4y2, and then it should be kitna? Minus 3?
Minus 3 y5.
Minus 3y5 less than or equal to minus 3.
Yes, ma'am.
And the last one will be, what are we writing as? 2y1?
2 y1.
Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
2y1 plus 0y2. And what will be the last one?
Plus 8 y5.
Plus 8 by 5 should be equal to 2.
Equal to 2. Right? And now you have y1, y2, y5 more than, oh sorry, y1, y2 more than or equal to 0, and y5 unrestricted in sign. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
अब हो जाएंगी problems? Just practice writing the dual, nothing more. Okay. just write the duals. Abhi, I'm not solving. Solving ke liye I'll give you a homework. Shall I give you problems? Write the duals of this. Minimize z equal to 3x1 minus 2x2 plus 4x3 subject to 3x1 plus 5x2 plus 4x3 more than or equal to 7, 6x1 plus x2 plus 3x3 more than or equal to 4, 7x1 minus 2x2 minus x3 less than or equal to 10, x1 minus 2x2 plus 5x3 more than or equal to 3, and one more constant, 4x1 plus 7x2 minus 2x3 more than or equal to 2 with x1, x2, x3 more than or equal to 0. This is simple. Try it yourself. I mean, I'm just writing the problems for you right now. Okay. Then try another problem. Yeah. Minimize z equal to x1 plus 2x2 subject to 2x1 plus 4x2 less than or equal to 160 and x1 minus x2 equal to 30 and x1 more than or equal to 10 with x1, x2 more than or equal to 0. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Then
Yes,
another
ma'am.
one, another one. They are simple. They're simple problems, not much to do. Maybe just write the dual, don't solve. Okay. अभी solve करने के लिए बताऊंगी क्या करना है, right? Then write the dual of maximize z equal to x1 minus 2x2 plus 3x3 subject to minus 2x1 plus x2 plus 3x3 equal to 2, 2x1 plus 3x2 plus 4x3 equal to 1, x1, x2, x3 more than or equal to 0. And another one, last one. Maximize z equal to 3x1 plus x2 plus 2x3 minus x4 subject to 2x1 minus x2 plus 3x3 plus x4 equal to 1 and x1 plus x2 minus x3 plus x4 equal to 3 with x1, x2 more than or equal to 0 and x3, x4 unrestricted in sign. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now your homework. Because today tomorrow I'm not taking my class, so your homework is, of course, you'll write the duals of these 4 problems and Now come back to the very first problem that I started with. This was the problem that I started with.
Yes.
Right. Solve this problem using simplex method. So right now you have to write the duals of the 4 problems that I have given. Fifth question is solve this problem using simplex method. Sixth question is we have written the dual of it also. When I explained duality, I asked you to write the dual of it also. I mean, I did not ask you, I wrote it myself. This was the dual. Right? Now, sixth question is to solve the dual using simplex method. Is that okay?
Okay, ma'am. Yes,
मैम आप एक बार सेकंड क्वेश्चन जो आपने अभी दिया था डुअल लिखने का एक बार आप दिखा दो.
1 minute. जो अभी सेकंड दिया लिखने के लिए.
यस मैम.
ये वाला.
यस मैम.
Right. So writing duals is not going to take time. What is going to take time is solving those 2 problems. वो भी बहुत ज़्यादा time नहीं लेगा. Solving primal will not take time. Solving dual might take.
Ma'am, what is the sixth question?
Solve the dual of the first the problem that I started with. You know, the chair, tables, and bookshelves. The example that I took, right? We have written the dual of that also. So solve the dual also using the simplex method.
मैम मुझे एक डाउट है कि ये जो हम डुअल निकाले हैं तो दोनों में तो हमारी ऑब्जेक्टिव फंक्शन चेंज हो रही है. तो अगर हम डुअल को सॉल्व कर रहे हैं तो क्या हम मतलब प्राइमल को बिना सॉल्व किए ही प्राइमल का ऑब्जेक्टिव को सेटिस्फाई कर सकते हैं मतलब लास्ट में?
यही तो ब्यूटी है. सॉल्व तो करो. यही दिस इज द ब्यूटी ऑफ मैथ्स. I might sound. I'll just come to it. Okay. The point is, okay. Now I'm finishing off the class. Okay, and I am stopping the recording. Then I'll answer your question, Srijya. Probably in the next class also, you will see it yourself. The point is that when we are writing the dual, and as I mentioned in the very beginning, that solving one will give you the solution for both. This is the advantage, the biggest advantage of simplex algorithm. That the algorithm works in such a manner that we are able to actually get the values for both the problems, maximizing and minimizing. The objectives are different, but you will get the answer. To read that answer, I'll do it in my next class. That's what I'm asking you, to solve both the primal and the dual separately. And then we'll compare the optimal tables. Then only you'll be able to appreciate where to read the solutions. How to read the solution of the dual from the primal, and how to read the solution of the primal from the dual. So we need to solve actually only one. Okay, so there you might be having a confusion, but yes, when we'll do the build on the theoretical concepts also, we have results, we have theorems that verify, you know, various facts. Like for example, we have done this, and we have actually, let me come back to where we were writing. If you see, if you write the dual, I mean, if you write the primal problem in the matrix form, it's something like maximize z equal to cx subject to AX less than or equal to B in the matrix form, where C becomes the coefficients C1, C2, Cn. I mean, here I can say my X is nothing but my matrix of variables x1, x2, xn, right? My A was what? The coefficient matrix of the form A11, A12, A1n. And if I have m constraints and n variables, then the order of A is going to be m cross n. Okay. My matrix B was simply B1, B2, Bm, because they were m constraints, right? And of course, my matrix C is your coefficient, C1, C2, Cn. Okay, C1, X1. Now, when you write the dual of it, what does it become? It becomes minimizing capital Z equal to. Now, instead of C, what do you get? B. Instead of X, what do you get? Y, subject to. Now, instead of reading it A, how are we reading the matrix now? Column wise, which is nothing but A transpose Y more than or equal to C. Or C, if C was a row matrix, then obviously it is also transpose. And if B was a column matrix, then this is also transpose. Okay. So somehow we have brought into picture the transpose of matrices. And the basic result on transposes is that A transpose transpose is A itself. है ना ये result हमारे पास? So using this result, we'll be able to prove that dual of dual is primal. होगा कि नहीं होगा? Write the dual of this problem again. It will be maximizing. Okay. Which will be what? C transpose transpose X. And what is C transpose transpose? C. Subject to A transpose transpose, again X or Z, whatever you want to call. Less than or equal to what? B transpose transpose. So you'll get back your primal problem. So that is the first basic result. We'll do some basic results on duality, and this will be your first result that will be proving that the dual of a dual is primal itself. Okay, similarly, we'll be proving results on the solutions. You know, how are the solutions of the primal and the dual related? So we have a theoretical proof for that, and therefore we can read the solution of one from the other. Okay, so we'll do this theoretically also. We'll do this, and before we move on to the theorem, what I want you to do is solve both the problems and just try to compare the optimal tables of the primal and the dual. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.